Welcome to Beyond the Cast. I'm JP DeRose. On today's show, we're going to take an in-depth look at using tubes for super aggressive smallmouth. And on the other side, well, our gear testers, they're going to be examining tubes. So sit back and have a look at what you need to know, both before and beyond the cast. It's easy to get overwhelmed when trying to pick the right gear. What gives us the best results for our hard-earned dollars? Well, today, we're going to find out because we're putting 4 competitive products to the test with our 4 testers. Mike, a former stunt rider who's hooked on everything fishing. Tommy, a hardcore tackle junkie with years of retail experience. And 2 tournament anglers, Ollie and Charles, who combined have almost 40 years of experience under their belts. Our gear testers are unsponsored and love to fish, but like the vast majority of us, fishing isn't their full-time job. They want to get past the marketing slogans and flashy advertising to tackle the facts on gear head on. And we tie all this together with me, JP DeRose, on the water, demonstrating techniques that would use the gear we're testing. In each and every show, you'll discover information that can help you become a more informed and knowledgeable angler, no matter your skill level or what you may face on the water. Welcome to Beyond the Cast. You know, one of the best baits you can ever use, and is super versatile, is a tube. They come in different sizes, they come in different colors, scents, everything, but they catch fish, practically everything that swims. So today we're actually going to be using a tube, and it's a simple technique, but we're really paying attention to what the fish are going to be doing today. For our setup, like we always talk about, well, today I'm going to be using a 7-foot one, but I'm going to actually up the power. I'm going to go medium heavy, extra fast action. Spinning reel, 3000 size, and the trick here, I'm loading it up with 10-pound test fluorocarbon. The reason I've upped my rod power is because fluorocarbon has a lot more stretch to it. It's not like braided lines, so I want that heavier power rod to help me set the hook. On the business end, we're going to be using a tube. Very simple. There's thousands of them on the market, but they're very effective. And we're going to be using it with a 1/4 ounce jig head in it, and we're going to be actually popping it and looking to trigger aggressive bass. Now on the other side, our gear testers, they're going to be looking at 4 types of tubes on the market. And they're going to be looking for things like durability, selection, action, all the things that make a great tube truly great. So sit back, this one's going to be super cool, because when you figure out a smallmouth and what they want, it's nothing to catch them.
Today we're going to be looking at 4 different tubes, and I'm really curious to see if the manufacturers have come up with any innovative ideas or designs for a tube.
I'm really interested in seeing if there's a big difference in the action with these tubes.
I'm going to be curious to see which tubes have sense.
To see which tube is the most durable.
Tubes have been around for a while now, and they pretty much all move and perform the same.
Due to the fact that tubes, you generally just drag them along, not a lot of action involved in them, so it'll be neat to see if there's any differences.
The problem with salt, I found, is because it dissolves, it makes the plastic weak.
I love pan fishing, but there's nothing more irritating than casting out your tube. You feel the tap tap, and when you reel in, you look down and you got no tentacles. I'm really keen to see which one of these tubes is going to be durable.
So with the 4 tubes today, we're going to be looking at scent versus the salt.
Tubes have been around for a while now, and they pretty much all move and perform the same. So I'm really curious to see the results of our testing.
Let's take a look at the products in today's show. The Quad-Dipped ISG tube features a hand-cut 2-inch tail section and a body twice as thick as the industry standard. The Mismo 4-inch Big Boy tubes are made with a healthy dose of salt and feature 60+ color variations. Power Team Lures designed the Food Chain tube to mimic a crayfish with body texture like a craw's tail and appendages. The Strike King coffee tubes are scented with real coffee bean granules and coffee oil, giving them a natural coloring. Here's a list of the criteria our testers will be rating the products on. Now don't go anywhere, because when we come back from the break, we're going to be fishing shallow transitions for smallmouth, and our gear testers, they're going to be looking at tubes. Got one. Oh, God. Crazy amount of fish in this spot right now. Just unbelievable. There he is there. You know, all decent 2 and a bit pound smallmouth and the occasional big one swimming around in here. And you know, if you have to pound through a whole bunch of fish to get a few big ones, it's absolutely worth it. I don't know a person in the world who's gonna say, I don't wanna catch a bunch of 2.5s to catch a 4. It's a great way to fish. And now that we've got them dialed in, it's easy as pie. It's like taking candy from a baby. Great way to catch them. Oh, there's one. Oh. Unreal. They are so into the movement today of the bait. It's unbelievable. It's a good fish. You know, as soon as you pop that bait today, that's when they're taking the biggest shot at it. But if you just leave it sitting there, they're not eating it. Where over the past few days, you know, typically the fish are gonna be wanting a dead stick presentation a lot of the times. And today, just reeling in a bait, I realized as they started chasing it, that they just want a little more movement. And making a little adjustment like that pays big dividends when you're fishing. Great example of an aggressive fish, especially in super shallow water like we're fishing. That 2-foot range, 3-foot range, 4-foot range. They're in here because they're feeding. And we're taking advantage of them by throwing that light tube and putting a lot of action in it. It's a cool way to catch them. Let's get it back in the water. One thing I get a lot of emails about is side imaging and how to use it to find stuff. And what I'm going to show you is finding weed lines properly on side imaging. So I've got my side imaging on screen on here. And I know I've got deep water here and I know I've got shallow water there. That's where the weed line is going to be. So I'm going to hit my menu button, and on SI side, I'm going to turn it to just the left side. So I don't even care what's in the deeper water. I want to see what's on the shallow side. And you can see here as we're going along, you can see the ins and outs of the clumps. And it's very easy just to move your cursor over, and you can actually put it on the tip of a clump, hit the mark button, and you've created a waypoint. And when you go back to your map after, you can actually see it all. It's an easy way to actually find all the clumps in an area before you start fishing them, and you have on your GPS then everything you need to know to be effective and not waste time in dead water. Oh, another fish. Whoa, not around the troller. Good looking fish. Oh, that's a nice solid fish. That fish hit that bait so hard. So hard. Unbelievable how hard they can hit this thing. And again, today, if I'm not twitching it, I'm not getting bit. So it's one of those things that you just gotta pay attention to as an angler, and you really gotta focus on moving that bait. If that's what they want, you gotta give it to them time and time again, because if you don't, you're not gonna get bit as often. You know, it's an amazing thing. When you really dial in the fish and what they want, it'll pay huge dividends. And for me, a tube is probably one of the baits. If someone said I could pick one, it's probably one of the baits I would take day in and day out, because you can work it so many different ways. When I'm looking for tubes, I'm always looking for something different. Selection, colors, all that stuff makes a big difference. Let's take a look how our gear testers are doing with it.
After the testing, the thing that really stood out for me on some of the tubes was the fact that 2 of them had no scent at all. They were just salt impregnated. However, the Strike King coffee tube had a coffee scent, and the Power Team tube had a garlic-based scent. And to me, scent is very important for 2 reasons. One, I think they can get more bites when the bite is tough. And secondly, I think that when they do bite, that they'll hold on maybe just that little bit longer.
Due to Power Team and Strike Kings adding scent to their baits, which was very noticeable, the testers rated them above the other competitors.
So So after looking at all the tubes, you know, what we've noticed is there's not a lot of differences in them, and what are pretty subtle. Power Team Lures has kind of gone a little bit out of the range, and they've put a solid head in theirs. They're also injected, and they've got a couple flappers on them, which is pretty neat. You know, if you're walking down an aisle of tubes and you're looking for something a little different, that's going to be the first thing that stands out. The other thing I liked was ISG has a quad dip, which if you're doing a lot of dragging, you know, you're going to get a lot more durability out of the tube, and it'll just prolong your day of using that one tube.
The testers examined each bait to determine if there were any design differences, looking at the head, body, and tail design. 3 of the baits were virtually identical in this group. Got him. That's better. Oh, God. Look at them all following him, too. Quality fish. Grab this guy. And you can see that food chain tube just like close his mouth up, and he's got 80% of that thing in there. When they're on a reaction bite, they will actually swim out and inhale the entire thing. So that smaller profile, instead of using a 4.5-inch tube to go down to a 3.5, will make getting it in their mouth a lot easier. Let's get this guy back in the water. Got him. Another little one. Another little smallie. You know, we pulled into this area today and quickly realized that they were on a feed that they wanted to chase. And sometimes, you know, you use a bait that a lot of people associate with dead sticking or dragging and keeping it on bottom, but a tube is so versatile that if you pop it a couple times, you're actually gonna be able to move them, get the fish to strike it. Once it's coming down with a light weight, it'll actually flutter down, you can get them to bite. We're gonna see how many we can catch in this one area doing just that. Here's 3 easy tips to enhance side imaging so you can really pick out the details. Out of the factory, side imaging comes with a blue screen. I'm gonna hit the menu button and go down to the SI colors. I'm gonna change it to Amber 1. That's the setting I'm gonna use. Hit exit, hit menu again, and you'll see SI Enhance. When you move over, a new menu pops up, and what you're gonna do is set your sensitivity to 12 and your contrast to 17. And all of a sudden, you're gonna see everything come to life. You're gonna see the shadows better, you're gonna see the highlights better, you're gonna see changes from soft bottom to hard bottom. They're gonna be brighter or darker, so you're gonna see those differences. And that's really gonna let you key in on what's important when you're looking for weed lines or transitions in the bottom. There's one. Oh, God. Unbelievable. Hitting it so hard. Even with straight fluorocarbon, I can feel these fish cracking it right through the rod. There he is there. And they're just cracking that tube. When I talk about having color options, sometimes the bite can be so specific, especially with smallmouth, where today I'm using a smoke with purple and clear tails. Some days they're gonna want a green pumpkin, sometimes green pumpkin with a red fleck. It can be so minute, but having that variety in your box will keep you under every condition catching. We'll get this one back, see if there's more. Whoa. That's a good one. Looks like a better fish. Yeah, yeah. God, they are so strong. There we go. Long fish. And for this one here, you know, we've been catching them really good today and decided to give them a little bit of a different look. When you're talking about tubes, it's something you really want to check out is different looks in the tubes. Not only the colors, but the looks as well. This is a great looking fish. We're gonna get this one back in the water. You know, in a lot of situations, you're gonna be on the water and subtle changes, little profiles in the bait, sizes of baits, they're all gonna make a big difference. When the fish start shutting down, you gotta learn to change it up. And one thing I'll say, design has a lot to do with having a really good tube. Let's take a look how our gear testers are doing with it.
All great tube fishermen are great anglers. A tube's one of the most versatile baits in your box. You can throw it, you can pitch it, you can cast it, you can dead stick it, you can do anything you want with the tube. When I bring a first-time angler in my boat, I tie on a tube for them because I know there's no wrong way to fish a tube. Frankly, the action of all the tubes was the same, and it's up to the angler to impart the action that they think the fish are going to react to that day.
To determine scoring for selection, the testers compared available colors from each of the 4 manufacturers.
In durability, the Power Team performed best. I think that's because it was scent impregnated versus salt impregnated. When you throw a salt impregnated lure in the water, the salt actually starts to break down and it weakens the tube. For a scent impregnated tube, that's not the case. It stays strong all the time.
So after looking at the test results with 4 tubes, it's no surprise that the scented bait tested way better than the salted baits. I noticed the salted bait had almost all of its tentacles ripped off, whereas the scented bait held much better.
One thing I really liked about the scented tube was it got really slimy when you put it in the water. Think about what fish eat. Most of it's slimy. So that thing looked really and felt really natural.
Each bait was pulled apart until failure multiple times using a force gauge and clamp assembly built into the test stand to determine durability. Welcome back to Beyond the Cast. I'm JP DeRose. Well, before the break, you saw us fishing shallow smallmouth on transitions with tubes, and our gear testers, well, they were looking at them. Let's take a look how the baits did. If color is your thing, Mismo, with its 60 plus colors, showed a commitment to covering every water condition. The solid head for Texas rigging and the 2 flappers really separated the food chain tube from the rest of the field. Strike King's coffee scent and Power Team's garlic and amino acids set them apart from the standard salt-impregnated competitors. Handling almost 2 pounds of downward force, the Power Team food chain tube remained on top of the standard tubes for durability.
My overall thoughts on the tubes, they kind of, finished up the way I thought. Not a lot of differences.
Really, all tubes are about angler imparted action. And for me, they were all pretty much the same.
I mean, a tube is still a tube. I really like the fact that the Power Team and the Strike King tubes had scent added.
I love the Power Team Lures food chain tube. Because of its solid head that you can Texas rig it is a main key factor for me when choosing a tube bait.
Power Team tube held up a little bit better. We did the tests on pulling them apart, and there's a little bit more bait left after everything was said and done.
That said, I really liked the ISG brand because they had so many different colors. And for me, I really like to fish in clear water, muddy water, stained water. I never know when I'm going to be throwing a tube, so I like a wide selection of colors.
I know that some of the other tubes had a vast array of colors. I'm not a big fan of a super assortment of colors. I think that's just a waste of tackle space. I have 4 basic colors that I use on every lake in North America.
When I'm flipping the tube in a heavy cover, I want that tube to last and catch me a lot of fish.
Power Team's got the Hog Tonic scent in them, which is something I like.
For me, I felt that the ISG tube was probably the best one because it really gave me a color for just about any condition I might face as a tournament angler.
If I had to choose just one, I'd probably go with the Power Team tube because I found that their tentacles were a little bit innovative and different from something a fish may have seen 1,000 times over.
Our final scores are determined by averaging each of the product's performances in all of the tests. It's not every day you're going to be on the water and you're going to find the smallmouth aggressive, shallow, and sitting on a transition. It was just a great day to be doing that. And today, using the tubes, it worked out flawlessly. But there was one key thing to today. I noticed that the fish wanted a more aggressive approach, and with a tube, you can do that. A tube can be fished a whole bunch of different ways, and it's all up to the angler to impart the action. You know, the setup today was really critical. Because of the clear water, I switched over to a straight fluorocarbon line. 9 times out of 10, I'm a guy who loves to throw braid with a fluorocarbon leader, but I think the way we were working the tube with the aggression and snapping it, the fluorocarbon paid off. With that clear water, smallmouth get ultra spooky, and I was able to really get a subtle approach and get them to react. Now with that rod, I had a 7'1" medium power, extra fast rod, coupled with a spinning reel that was a 2500 size reel. A great drag, that fluorocarbon, which was 10-pound test, a 1/4 ounce tube head, and I was able to rail on these fish. But there was one other thing that I changed today, and that was once I caught a bunch of smallmouth on a specific color of tube and I noticed them slowing down, I changed it up. I went to a different profile and a different color, and it got me more bites. Now on the other side are gear testers. They've been looking at tubes and they check things like action and durability and scent. And you know what? They all had their differing opinions on what they liked. Some of them love the fact that in selection, there is 40 or 50 different colors in a tube. And other guys, they like the fact that they have 5 keys, but they like the scent of the tube. There was no doubt that the overall consensus on tubes is that action is imparted by the angler, but these baits catch everything that swims. Next time you're heading out on the water, set yourself up with some tubes. Whether it's 3.5, 4, or 4.5 inches, I promise you, if you impart some action and put them in the right place, they're gonna get chowed down hard.